very, very good evening to everyone who's joined us today on this Saturday evening. My name is Anju Deoskar. I'm Associate Director for Admissions and Outreach at Flame University, and I very warmly welcome you all to the second season of Connection webinar series. So a little bit about ConneXions. I think Flame University's liberal education philosophy strives to make connections between seemingly disparate disciplines. In this time of uncertainty, we need to be equipped with the right knowledge and the tools to be able to deal with unpredictable changes. Looking at this situation from various perspectives, I think only betters one's ability to find a better solution. With this in mind, I think we started this series, a lecture series, to help with the help of our respected thought leaders, which kind of helps you to discover the value of interdisciplinary thinking in the post-COVID world. These sessions are free. They're open to all who want to learn and are interested in learning. About this session, how to become an impactful influencer. I think with this last 1 year where everybody was isolated, social media plays a very, very important role. We've seen young, old, new, influencers coming in the social media platform. So this session will entirely focus on what does a social media influencer do or have that we can understand and use. In today's session, we will explore the world through an influencer's mind. We will understand the deeper reason on how to create influence and, more importantly, how to use it well. I really welcome Professor Siddharth Deshmukh for accepting this invite, and I will just take a minute to introduce you, Siddharth.
Thank you.
Professor Siddharth is a graduate from MICA in 1996, from the first batch where he finished his 2-year flagship PGDM. In his most recent foray, he's been Associate Dean at MICA, in charge of many administrative, functional, and digital platform and strategies areas. Before this, he was also teaching at MICA and continues to do so today as well. He has taught various digital and non-digital courses across institutes: digital transformation, customer experience design, marketing in digital, and many, many more. He co-created MICA's digital communication management specialization along with other MICA faculty. He has mentored over 150 students to convert their ideas into prototype and potential ventures. He's got immense number of years of experience, 20 years in the digital entertainment field, where he's worked with in the field with Sony Entertainment Television, AT&T, etc. So, Professor Deshmukh, the floor is yours. Please influence us. We are really keen to hear you for next 1 hour today. Thank you so much.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for this wonderful and warm sort of description of, I was wondering who the hell this person is. And then I realized that I should not be, talking more about myself, but more about maybe the topic itself. So here's the way in which I'm going to do it. I'm going to talk about influencing the influencer, and I'm not going to speak through any PowerPoint. I'm just going to have this conversation with anybody who's willing to listen. And the fact is that the reason why I think I bring a perspective, I wanted to just maybe share that first. The reason why I bring a perspective is for two reasons, right? One is my daughters. They are social media influencers. They have over 600K followers on Instagram and over 2 million followers on TikTok. Here in the UK, TikTok is still, a thing. So there's a lot that I've learned from my daughters. And I think that has been an amazing journey for them. And it has been an amazing journey for me as a professor to see that. And the second is that I run my own podcast called Smarter with Sid. And this podcast has had over 160 odd episodes, which has created a sort of community for me and my voice. And I wanted to share my experiences with doing that podcast as well. Now, the reason why I thought that this will bring a different perspective just going beyond the role of a teacher or a professor, is because it will make it real. It will make all the challenges, all the barriers, all the beauty of being an influencer real, and it will kind of combine theory with practice. I think that at the end of this lecture, if I'm able to share through a practical real lens as to what an influencer actually is, and also how we can kind of learn from that maybe, and use it in our own lives to build our own personal brands, I think could be worthwhile. Maybe your Saturday evening won't be completely wasted. So anyways, this is influencing the influencer, and I wanted to just officially start my conversation with you right now. So let's begin with human beings. So before I get into my daughters or whatever my podcast is, I wanted to maybe set the stage for how human beings are different from any other species on Earth. So human beings are very, very different. Let's take bees, for example. Instead of human beings, let's take bees. I think bees, and I'm not trying to trigger any political debate out here, bees are the perfect communists. The reason why they are the perfect communists is because each and every bee has a particular role that they stick to, and there is no aspiration to be anything else. And there is complete discharge of duties. And so a drone bee is a drone bee, a worker bee is a worker bee, a queen bee is a queen bee. Yeah, there is no aspiration, and still it's a tribe. But as you move up the ladder, or whatever ladder you move down the ladder, you find that there are wolves. And now wolves can be single wolves or wolves in packs. And then when you move to primates, you find something even more interesting, wherein there are groups or tribes, and you find out that the reason why these tribes and groups actually succeed is because they are tribes and groups. And then we find one specific species of primates, which is the humanoid species, which is Homo sapiens. And then suddenly we see the stark difference between human beings and any other sort of animal that we see. And one of the core differences is that in, say, the wolf world or the lion world, it's the strongest, fastest animal that typically ends up leading that specific tribe or herd. But in humanity, it's different. In humanity, leadership is very different. Humanity leadership is very contextual. Okay, and now let me make it a little more relatable. I'm sure all of us remember, whatever our ages may be, college days. So if I look at college days, and if I look at a typical class and the way in which it is structured, you will have somebody who knows how to party. You will have somebody who knows how to work the class notes. You will have somebody who actually is, the class nerd. You will have somebody who actually is, good at sports, and so on and so forth. So you have leadership in human beings, which is very contextual. It is not like, okay, this guy is the leader, and so this person remains the leader for every activity that this particular tribe does. You have different contextual leaders coming in from different contexts, right? And herein lies the heart of actually being an influencer. So if I look at what an influencer really is, and if we keep the whole social media angle out of it, right, and just look at what an influencer is for what the influencer is doing, then you look at whether it's somebody who's really, really famous, or somebody who's, one of these social media influencers. You are talking about somebody who is a leader in some way or the other in that particular context, right? So what then we are learning is a very specific, specialized form of leadership, and a leadership which is about the ability to be communicators. Yeah. Now let me elaborate on that a little more. If I look at the difference between, again, lions, wolves, and human beings choose their leaders who essentially are great communicators. So, I mean, if you look at the leader of, say, an Infosys, or the leader of any other company that you've got, I don't know why I thought of Infosys, but Infosys, then you have Narayan Murthy, okay, who perhaps is not Usain Bolt, as in he's not running 100 meters in 10 seconds. He is actually has the ability to communicate his company's vision, his value system, etc., etc., etc. And you are in a situation wherein you can relate to that person and you feel inspired by that person. You feel like going ahead and doing something with that inspiration. And so therefore that company becomes great because they achieve great things in life. And if you roll that back into the savannah, and see how our ancestors were living, exactly the same way, because you had somebody who says, I know the way towards survival. I know the way towards water. I know the way towards food. I know the way towards safety. I know the way towards security. And you had these contextual leaders who then became influencers for people to reach to a certain destination. Right? And all of them were communicators, really good communicators in that specific context. It's not necessary that that context, when it changes, that communication is going to be fantastic. Okay, it's not most of the times. But in this one, it's specifically that person is an influencer. So if you ask me, who was the first ever influencer? And then we'll say, maybe Kim Kardashian or maybe somebody else. And then you'll think, no, not really. It was that ancestor in the savannah who was the first influencer, because he or she could actually literally influence lives and maybe save lives.
So here, is it a point that you're making that one has always been an influencer, whether it was, ancient time or now, but
absolutely.
Right now, I think it's getting more connected with just the social media or maybe just.
Yeah. In fact, that's exactly the point. Because if I look at how influencers are being looked upon, they're conflated with social media. But what I think we need to do as normal people is to understand, how do you influence people in this age of social media, rather than how do I become a social media influencer? So when you flip the question on the head, then suddenly a world of possibilities comes through. There are a lot of lessons that we can learn from genuine influencers, and I'm going to come to that a little in a bit. But yes, that was probably the summarized point. Thanks a lot, Anju. Okay, so if I look at the types of influences and how they've changed, right? You had your, Amitabh Bachchan is an influencer wherever he is, right? That's because he's a celebrity, and celebrities are, automatic influencers. So if an Amitabh Bachchan starts his Instagram account, people are going to flock. Like Jennifer Aniston, when she started her Instagram account, people flocked, and she became the biggest star on Instagram for about a month before she was replaced by somebody else. But the fact is that if you're a celebrity from the very get-go, then automatically you're going to carry that attraction to social media. But does that make a celebrity an influencer? Okay, so that
they're public figures, actually. If you look at it, they're public figures. People already know them, whether they had an account on social media or not. So
people already know them.
Is something different then.
Yeah, it's something different. And that's why we need to really understand the difference between the different types of influences that we've got. So the most famous thing is Acha Ranveer Singh. He's worn these clothes, and therefore he's the celebrity who's the school dude, and he's got this Insta account, and therefore now he is an influencer. In fact, he is a celebrity who happens to have a very successful Instagram page. He's one kind of influencer. Let's say he's the celebrity influencer. But is that interesting? Not really. If we think who are the influencers who are really interesting, then we come across two different types. Okay. One type of influencer is the domain expert. So if I'm a domain expert, if I'm a Sanjeev Kapoor, okay, and if I am a chef, then automatically I become an influencer in that specific area, in that specific domain. And so therefore I am that type of influencer. The second, and this is even more interesting, is that I have no discernible skill. Okay, I have no discernible skill. So I may not have necessarily makeup skills or cooking skills or whatever skills, but I still am able to communicate really well about a certain aspect of my life or my lifestyle in a manner that's inspirational to other people. So that becomes extremely important. I call them natural born killers. So natural born communicators, so they are the ones who have that God-given ability to do exactly this. So they don't have domain expertise. And unfortunately, my two idiot kids fall into that camp. But besides my two idiot kids, I think this was started by PewDiePie. PewDiePie was this really big influencer who began as a so-called gaming expert. Okay, but he was not really, he was not the world number one in playing any specific sort of game. He was commentating on games, and then he just kind of became this thing, which was the fact that he was communicating really specifically well about one aspect of and then he added on to that, and that became another story. So now you have three kinds of influencers. One is the celebrity influencer who comes in with his celebrity-ness. The second is your domain expert. And the third is your natural born communicator, right? And it becomes extremely important for us to know this, that, okay, so it is not about having so if any, see, what we must understand is that being an influencer is not going to be possible for each and every person. The reason is because some of us are naturally good communicators. Okay, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that somebody who's okay in communication can't get better. This is not a self-betterment class. There's some people who can just connect, right? And social media has allowed them to connect. So that actually what has happened. And we are seeing this explosion of influencers because of this situation. Now, you have another way of classifying influencers. You can have, your typical micro influencer, and nano influencer. So nano influencer is somebody who is below 5,000 followers on Instagram or something like that, but between 1,000 and 5,000, but has some influence. Then you have your micro influencer, which is between 5,000 to 50,000, whatever. These numbers keep changing. Then that's not very important. And over 50,000 till you reach about 2 million or 3 million or whatever, you're an influencer. Then you actually become a celebrity. So you actually have this curve from nano to celebritism, right? Now, here's the interesting thing. The interesting thing is the most believed influencer amongst all of these is the nano influencer. Why? Because the nano influencer is the most relatable, is the most genuine, and is very tightly defined by that interest. Then as and how you grow, as and how an influencer grows, obviously you're not going to have the same level of relatability, genuineness, or interest, the same interest defined. So therefore, this becomes a very interesting thing for us to actually understand. So if I'm doing some marketing, right, and if I'm trying to look at influencers, for example, and if I'm trying to get these influencers to be part of my marketing campaign, which one should I take? Should I take a nano influencer? Should I take a micro influencer? Should I take an influencer or a celebrity? Obviously, each one will be more and more expensive than the other. But I think the question should be, how should I use them rather than which one should I take? Because I think all of these categories are useful for certain aspects of communication. And let me explain why this becomes true. It is connected deeply with something called Dunbar's number. Now, what is Dunbar's number? It's 150. People say it can be 180. Now, what does 180 or 150 mean, right? It is the number of significant special relationships that you, Anju, and I can hold in our heads, okay? And they mean something to us. Because human beings are creatures of communication. Therefore, we want stories that have meaning. And if a relationship has a meaning, then I will store it in my head. Now, when I say has a meaning, that doesn't necessarily mean romantic relationships, or it doesn't necessarily mean family type things. It could very well be your house help. but there is a specific relationship which is important to you and meaningful to you that is going to last. So Dunbar's number is the limit of number of relationships that have actual meaning for you, and that's 150. Okay. Now, if I look at this 150 figure, it's so small, no? And if you compare it to any influencer, then the influencer has this special ability to hack into everybody's 150, right? So you don't know why you like Joe Rogan, right? But you listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, every night before you go to sleep. Now that means Joe Rogan has wormed his way into your 150. That means somebody else is out, by the way, because it's a very hard and fast number. That's cognitive ability. It's a physical thing. We can't store relationships beyond 150, or you may stretch it to 180 or something, but that's still that. So influencers, because of their amazing ability to actually communicate, have the potential to hack and create special meaning for you about them. So that's how influencers actually work. And they get there through those three things that I spoke about: relatability, genuineness, and connection with interests. Right? Now, if I look at celebrities, okay, they worked on the exact opposite things. Celebrity used to be a celebrity because there was a certain sense of mystique, aura, okay, and some mystery. So it was all mystery. It was shrouded in mystery. You didn't want the celebrity's life to be exposed so much. There was something aspirational about the celebrity because the celebrity was hidden, right? But this changed completely with social media. When social media came onto the fore, then there was no point, because information was equally available to everybody. Everybody knew what everybody else was doing. Information symmetry happened, because of which the new value system came through. And the new value system was about relatability, genuineness, and interests, because those are what made the influencer an influencer. Of course, you and I can be relatable, genuine, or have interest, but we need not end up being an influencer, because we may not have that natural born ability to communicate. So where have we reached so far? Human beings are different. Contextual leaders, from celebrities to influencers, we have moved. Types of influencers, you can look at types two different ways. One way is to look at, micro, nano, etc., etc. The second is natural born communicators, domain experts, etc. And then you have what we are seeing is from being a celebrity before social media to being an influencer after social media. You're moving from mystery and aura and all of mystique and charm and all of that to relatability, genuineness, and interest. And that's what I call the dispersion of influence. So it is as if celebrities' power, that he or she had hoarded up, is suddenly dispersed through millions and millions of influencers. Yeah. So this was the context that I wanted to set. Anything that you think I should give more clarity?
So one question, I mean, is it the technology which has reintroduced influencers, or is it also the key element to being, being influencers? Like you said, there was a little bit of different sort of factor for celebrities. Today, the next door girl or a boy can be a celebrity. So, you may not have had that experience like a celebrity in terms of an actor or anyone, but you can still be. So how do you kind of, describe that?
Sure. So there are two interesting points that I'd like to just throw, right? One is, why are actors and models celebrities in the first place? Why do we celebrate looks? I mean, like, for instance, I do ask my class, okay, why does Amitabh Bachchan get paid more than a great heart surgeon? It can be argued that the heart surgeon is actually, performing a way more important task than Mr. Bachchan is, with due respect to him. And some argue, some say, nahin, Mr. Bachchan is providing value and entertainment to millions and millions of people. Scale hai. The heart surgeon can only, solve one thing at a time. So that's why it's a question of scale economics, and that solves part of the problem. But the second part is intrinsic. Okay, I would rather meet an Amitabh Bachchan than a heart surgeon to inspire me. Okay, now why does that happen? Very few of us will say, no, I am totally into heart surgeons and heart surgery. And unfortunately, in my mind, but that's how it happens. So why is that important? And the most important thing that we can take away from it is that an actor or model has the ability to mimic and inspire you by being somebody else.
And that, listen to them probably.
Yeah, and that seems to be very required for us because that allows us to band together as a tribe. Right? So we want to be inspired. And strangely, in our tribe, we want to do two things which are paradoxical. We want to blend in, but we also want to stand out. Right? We are not like bees. Bees are perfectly happy. We want to blend in, but we want to stand out also. Right? So once we are doing both of that, therefore, we are looking at these inspirational people as inspirational. So that's point number one. Now, the question was about technology. Now, let me just take a few steps back and look at different kinds of technologies. So if I look at theater is a certain kind of technology, right? If I look at film is another kind of technology. Okay, if you look at records are another kind of technology. So just because we've got Spotify, YouTube, and Netflix right now, or Instagram right now, doesn't mean that technology has suddenly happened now, isn't it? So the fact is that technology and advances in technology always created that change. So there are a lot of theater artists who did not become movie celebrities because they did not know how to transition. There are a lot of celebrities who do not know how to become influencers because the underlying tech platforms have changed. In fact, one notable exception to this rule is Will Smith, the actor. So today, if you see Will Smith's Instagram account, he's a legit digital creator first, and a star later on Instagram because he's creating content which is particularly funny and has got nothing to do with his movies. So he's not promoting his movies only on Instagram. He's doing some funny stuff too. And that's not how celebrities used to functioning. Celebrities used to saying, oh, this is my channel wherein I'll market my new movie. Yeah. But influencers don't do that. There's a significant difference in the way in which an influencer uses that platform and a celebrity uses that platform, or you and I use that platform. So a celebrity uses a platform by saying, this is for my marketing. You and I use that platform to be part of our own tribe and communicate. An influencer uses that platform to inspire that tribe or influence that tribe. I don't know if I've answered that.
Yes, but absolutely. I think technology was always there, just that the advancements that we see is, I think, change is too fast now. So theater has been there. Before that, it used to be just people who went from city to make public speeches. That was also an influence of a sort, way back before, real technology kind of came in.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this was the context. Now I want to just give my examples that I spoke about. So I've started a podcast. So I'm going to talk about that a little and what my learnings were. So I'm not going to try and market my podcast. I'm going to try and give some general gyan on what I find difficult to do with Smarter with Sid, which is the podcast. And more than that, I'm going to talk about the weirdly stupendous success that my daughters seem to have gotten and what I learned from that. So let's start with the daughters first. When it was, I think we were on some holiday trip, and then the kids, this was 4 or 5 years back, they told me, oh, we got 30,000 followers on Instagram in 3 or 4 days. So I was like, what? Okay, that's interesting. And I was a little concerned as to how did it happen.
What happened?
So they were 13 and 15 at that point in time. right? So right now they're, 19 and 17. So I realized that, okay, they'd started something called River Daily. And River Daily was an account which was which was kind of focused on this thing called Riverdale, which was based on Archie Andrews and all
Yeah,
that gang.
yeah.
Yeah, it had a good season one, then went downhill very badly, right? So that was the thing on Netflix. These guys saw Riverdale and then said, let's start River Daily. Started River Daily, grew it to 30,000. But then they themselves got bored with it and said, okay, now let's start something of our own. This is ages of 14 and whatever, right? 16, maybe 6 months later. They started something called Iconic Cakes. Okay, ICONICAKES. Nothing to do with baking, more to do with lifestyle, more to do with a little bit of makeup. I mostly don't ask me what they do.
Yeah.
It is beyond me but as a dad, but as a professor, when I started, first of all, I panicked again because they reached 100K very, very quickly. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. So then but when the father in me probably calmed down because, kids were doing what they were doing in any case, they're not going to listen to a boring old dad. So that's one. The second is they started succeeding. And so then the professor in me woke up. So, okay, so let me learn from them. Okay. Anyways, I teach digital subjects and my kids think that I have no idea about digital. So let me learn from them. Let me understand what's going on here. So I learned that they had a very, very, very deeply involved community. Okay. So they were like commenting and sharing and stuff like that. So there was this hugely involved community of mostly girls who were connected with them, but they represented a certain set of values, a certain lifestyle, a certain way of looking at life even. And, Sarah and Avni, that's their name. So Sarah had a certain different point of view, Avni had a different point of view. And the community and them, they were having a genuine, relatable, genuine and interest-driven communication. So this was happening. Then 1 year later, I found out that, whoa, they have 300,000 followers. And they've started some TikTok thing also. At that time, TikTok was in India, but they grew their base, and today they stand at over 2 million followers on TikTok and 600 something on Instagram. And because of that, they were selected for an Estee Lauder campaign, and they were selected for Nike and stuff like that. So yeah, they were the official faces of Instagram for the UK for a while, and so they reached sort of a mini celebrity sort of level within, say, 3 to 4 years. But at every single point in time, the connect between them and their community was always very strong. So it wasn't, and they were very adamant that I don't care, I don't want that money, I don't want this. I have to make sure that I remain true to my community. Okay, now this is very interesting to see because you hear a lot about influencers and how they are going to cash in and how they are going to, they go for the highest bidder, and that all of that is true. And I think influencers should earn money for whatever they're doing. But if you're looking for identifying the true blue influences from people who have just been flashes in the pan, what you'll soon understand is these people are cultivating their community and evolving with that community over a period of time and making that the number one priority. Now that sounds very idealistic, but that's how it is. And it's done in a fairly selfish way, mind you. It is not a selfless act. It's a selfish thing. They know that this is what is precious and this is not what is precious, right? So even how they're growing is completely dependent upon that value system that you can see. And you're on mute. No problem. Still on mute.
Do you think, along with the three important things that you mentioned, responsibility, connect, so do you think ethics also kind of play in, especially with the examples that you've given about your daughters? I
Yeah.
think the choice that they made of, sticking with the community and, staying there, I think, do people realize that it's an important aspect of being an influencer?
Absolutely, because there's something also on the negative side, there's something called cancel culture, which essentially means that if you are not going to connect to, it's not your haters who are going to pull you down. It's people who have loved you and who feel let down by you because you are moving on to a different value which they do not espouse, is when cancel culture happens. It's not by haters, it's by former lovers. They are the ones who are going to pull you down. So that becomes pretty interesting to see. Also, one more interesting aspect that your question has triggered, and it is about the fact that communities evolve. So it's like this: I like different music, right? Especially in teenage and early 20s, and even at any age, our interests evolve, our music taste evolves, our clothes taste evolves, and all of that. So you can't remain static. You have to evolve along with the community and yet lead the community in some ways, learn from the community in some other ways. And I think that whole evolution along with the community is a very integral part of any influencer, whatever it may be, nano, micro influencer, whatever, right? So if I look at how these kids have evolved over this time, it's amazing. I mean, they laugh at themselves. They say, look at this stupid video I made 3 years back, how silly, and thank you for calling me out, and stuff like that. And that makes a big difference. And this leads to the fact that what does growth actually mean for an influencer? So, we had a bit of a celebration in the UK when the kids hit 2 million. So we're like, yay, celebrate and all of that. So we got some food, and I was like, what does it mean to you? So it is a scary feeling. It is an overwhelming feeling. I said, do you realize how many people these 2 million are? So if I look at, say, in Eden Gardens, right, which is this Calcutta-based, based stadium, and you have the ability to have 1 lakh people in it. So multiply that by 10 stadiums, and then you have a million. And then, so therefore 20 stadiums, you have 20 stadiums worth of people who are rooting for you and support you and want to be with you and stuff like that. So that by essence becomes absolutely beautiful to actually understand and comprehend as to the influence that an influencer can have. Now, that is what growth means. But growth is not everything, because growth can actually mean different things. You can have growth in numbers, but you can also have growth in the amount of time people are spending with you. You can also have growth in the amount of comments people are making with you. So that means engagement. You can have, so many different factors. So you've got to understand that metrics also change. Metrics change, and we need to understand how an influencer's mind works when they're looking at metrics. Trust me, my kids, and so do I, when I'm doing my podcast, we are looking at numbers very, very carefully, because numbers are not an ego trip. They tell us whether we are doing well or whether we are doing badly. What is it that can do better? What is it that we can improve on, and stuff like that. And that helps us provide more value to somebody who is taking the time and trouble to stay connected to us. So that makes a big difference, right? And now sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah, so very interesting to hear these examples that you've given about your daughters Sarah and Navni. So
Yeah.
is this the reason? Now I can imagine a 17 and a 19-year-old young girl with followers of 10 stadium full of people. So does it also make the industry think that is why it's important for brands to include influencers in their marketing strategies, and that's what is
Yeah,
why
because
people want to become influencers now?
and the big difference is that when an Amitabh Bachchan is playing a role in a film, people go to see the film, right? So there is that. So the equation, the relationship is different. Over here, people are connected to you because you're you, and you're producing you, and you're directing you, and you're creating you, and the relatability and genuineness and interest is completely at a different level. And that's why it's a stronger phenomenon.
Yeah.
nowadays. Is this making sense?
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. So I wanted to say, I wanted to bring a different part. So these are learnings that I got from my daughters, right? So that's where we talked of community, we talked of growth. Now I want to talk about algorithms. So when people say algorithm badal gaya, that's why now I don't get those many, likes and or whatever, right? So if I look at algorithm, it's just reflecting audience interests at a particular point in time. Okay. What the audience wants as an experience of a particular platform. So an influencer is always connected to what that algorithm is dictating, because through the algorithm, they know what their community wants. So it is not that they're trying to hack the algorithm and that's why you become big. You could become big for a week, but it's not going to be consistent. An algorithm, an influencer's algorithm is not only with the platform, but also with the community. That's what I wanted to say. It's a combination of both things. So it's not like I know how to succeed on Instagram. I know how to succeed on Instagram with my community. I may not be able to succeed with your community. Yeah. So that is how I would look at algorithms. Also, another thing about this whole managing the algorithm business and managing, I've seen my kids put in a huge amount of hard work. Now, most people think that natural born communicators means, but I mean, they have to live a life in order to be interesting. So they have to actually have genuine interests, so genuine friendships, genuine relationships, genuine family ties, genuine school. My elder one is in the university, the younger one is still in high school. So it is a full busy life, and plus they have a job which they have to do, which is to communicate with this wonderful community, and they're doing both of these things, and so they're learning a lot of things which are actually making them entrepreneurs. So being an influencer is also being an entrepreneur, because you now know that your path is different, and you can't remain connected to the typical way in which people are getting educated. And it brings its challenges, because when, as in how you bring your community online, and it becomes big, there are bound to be jealousies and anger in your real school, right? Or in your whatever, and it's obviously tense, and human beings are human beings. Eventually you tear up and you start getting upset. But if you have the ability to create those moments because of your life, even going through a bad day, well, that's what makes you that influencer. So hard work is highly underrated. People think it's very easy to do this. I've seen my kids work with agencies, which is what I wanted to speak about too, right? So I have worked with agencies. But kids have worked with agencies. Agencies are different, because agencies are always looking out in which, how can I monetize this person in order to earn my bread and butter, right? But the talent or the influencer is always trying to say, no, hold on, will it impact my personal brand? So there's always a tussle. So it's not like the agency is in cahoots with the influencer. A real influencer is always going to be in opposition to an agency. In fact, a lot of times people ask me, there are two influencers I have in mind. One influencer has 1 million followers, second influencer has 500,000 followers. But that person with 500,000 followers is saying no to my brand. So I said, make a note of this person. Keep that name. Okay. Try and figure out what brands she would support. Connect with her and hire her, because she is the real deal. Because she will say it with genuineness and relatability and all the rest of it. So it obviously, as human beings are different, there are going to be different types of influences. But this is a simple technique or hack that I found out that typically would work with how you can get the most out of your influences working for your marketing. Now, one more thing I wanted to say about my daughters, and then I'll come to what my learnings were. My biggest learning was that every influencer is platform dependent unless and until you're very lucky. I think my kids are lucky because they're big on Instagram as well as TikTok. But most influencers are either big on one or the other, or some other thing like Pinterest or something. And there's a good reason for that. And the reason is that that platform is the context in which you have met, right? And what we had discussed right in the beginning is that all human beings are contextual leaders. They are not leaders across. So what does that mean in our digital age? It means that perhaps it's likely that you're going to be successful on one platform, but that doesn't mean you're going to be successful across platforms. Okay, there will be exceptions to the rule, of course, and celebrities will carry their celebritism everywhere. But typically, you'll have one platform which is really, really big and strong. What I've also noticed is that if you want to genuinely, if you think that you have a good voice and if you want to be an influencer, go for the platform that's underrepresented, which is why we saw so many people go on to Clubhouse and start talking suddenly. The reason is because they all wanted to figure out whether they can have those wonderful big followings on Clubhouse, right? Because that's where, because when a platform is new, it's trying to promote each and every person which is coming in. So you're going to get people pushed up to the surface. But eventually, it is the natural born communicators who will last the distance. You can't last beyond. You can be
advantages.
Beginners luck. So you can't really depend on them. Okay, so enough about my kids. Now let me talk about my bitter failures. Here's the interesting thing. My podcast started off as being called The Traveling Professor's Diary, right? And it's a microcast, 10-minute, okay? And over and out, I envisioned it as an after-class conversation. So if I'm teaching at Flame or Micah or whatever, and I finish my class, and there'll be some people who'll come with the professor and say, hey, what about this? What about that? And eventually the conversation goes to a cafe, and then you're having a chai, and then the conversation happens for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then it's over. So that's how I visualized it. So it happened, but what we realized was we needed to rebrand it, because sure, I'm called a traveling professor on Instagram and LinkedIn, but that doesn't mean that this is a travel show. And people were thinking this is a travel show, and they're like, ye kya ho raha hai? So we rebranded it and started calling it Smarter with Sid. So you have to think in terms of what the receiver of the information will be getting in terms of you as an influencer or wannabe influencer or whatever it is. The second is you have to find your voice. See, whatever you do now, you have to be able to do consistently. You can't put on an act. So you have to like what you do. So you have to spend a lot of time finding your voice. You can't really, try to be somebody else. I mean, there's a big joke that says, please be yourself, unless you're Batman, then please be Batman. But most of the times we should be ourselves, and it's damn difficult. Because when in my head, that podcast seemed very nice, okay, the thought seemed very nice. But when it came out of my mouth, okay, when I'm recording it, I was aghast. My voice was sounding horrible. Everybody's voice sounds horrible to them. And it was just not coming through, right? And over a period of time, because of the consistency, you're able to find your voice. But the idea should be always, how am I adding value? And not think about money or anything for at least 1 or 2 years. I think that's how you can become genuine. And if you can't do it, don't do it. It's not necessary. Being an influencer is not an easy game, nor is it a game for everybody. I think that's extremely important. And also realize what perhaps you can do and what you can't do. I'm just going to take 2 or 3 minutes, and then we can open it up. As promised, it's going to end soon. So what I wanted to say was, look, I think what I realized was I wanted to focus on the content. So I got a great partner in IBM who do my branding and marketing and design and production and stuff like that. They're a wonderful partner for me. So they connected with me, and so then it becomes real good way of doing things. I just bring patience to my game and enjoyment to my game, because if I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, and if I'm not patient with myself and the results that I'm getting, I'm going to not really, do justice to it. So I think I've done about 164 of these podcasts over the past almost 2 years now. And now I realize, okay, I think I kind of know what my voice is. So it's that difficult, right? So these are my learnings. Now, the only 2 or 3 things, if anybody is into influencer marketing, very quick tips. Okay. One is don't choose the influencer, choose the community you want to target. So don't go influencer for which influencer should I get? No, which is the community. So look for communities, look at what communities want, and then see the influences that they are pushing or whatever. I think that works tremendously. The second is choose the type of influence you want. Do you want a domain expert? Do you want a celeb? Or do you want a natural born communicator? In these three things, do you want a micro influencer? Do you want a nano? Or do you want, what exactly do you want? Because all of them will fulfill certain, because of that Dunbars number thing, right? And then choose the metric. What is success? Just numbers, are they success? I've seen my kids actually say, I don't want these many views for my this video. I want more engagement, which means that there's a difference. There's a difference, and there's a big difference. And so they have their own whatever in their head. I have no idea what they're doing, but essentially they're flipping between these two things, and they know exactly what they're trying to achieve. So choose the metric wisely. That's it from me. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, your last point, I mean, even when I probably go on my social media account, there's certain things you like almost everything what you followed. Like it may make sense to me on that particular moment or not, but when you comment, that is actual engagement. And I think that's what you mean by the community, focus on the community. So I have a question, Professor Deshmukh. Does it impact people mentally? I know it's not just directly connected with the topic, but since you're in the game, does it mentally imbalance a person, or has a little challenge when you suddenly see that you're not getting, you got posted a picture, you got million likes, next day you do it, you've just got maybe a few thousand. So does it stresses out people to kind of work more hard or get disturbed probably?
No, certainly. I think mental health is a big issue with a lot of people, including influencers. I think all of us get a little upset when we don't get our profile to be liked by as many people as as the last time. Absolutely. So now multiply that pressure by 1 million, and then you'll have the pressure that an influencer faces. So certainly you need to have a different sort of understanding.
We have a question, and since the audience are writing, so we'll definitely like to take this one. Hello, sir. Thank you so much for the beautiful insight thoughts. I have a question. What is the role of personalizing issues, personal stories to be an effective influencer?
Okay. So I think that the way in which the question is posed, it is posed as okay, is there so if I follow this strategy, is it going to work? If I follow this tactic, is it going to work? And so my answer is, if you follow it as a strategy or tactic, it is going to fail. If the story is genuine to you, okay, and if the story actually means something to you, then say it, and it is going to have much more traction. Don't do it as a strategy, do it because it really moves you, then it will move other people.
All right. So Edmond says, how to influence people on Instagram as a beginner with maybe 500 followers.
So this is a big problem. The problem is that Instagram is now a mature platform, which means that Instagram is not going to spend its time promoting people who have 500 followers. Now, this means that if I didn't get the person's name.
This was Edmond. Sorry, it wasn't showing the full thing. Yeah.
Edmond. The fact is, if you've got more than 500 followers in real life, get them onto your page, right? So if you've got 50,000 people that like you, very unlikely, but if you've got 50,000 people who like you, get them on. So that's one way. The second way is to actually stand for a cause or an interest or a community, and don't try to be an influencer. Try and join in and actually add value to the conversation first, before trying to create an inspiring position for yourself. Because that was the old way, or the celebrity way. What we are trying to do is be as genuine and relatable as possible. And don't go by follower count, because that is not the only thing, right? You have nano influencers, you have micro. Try to go for influence rather than becoming an influencer.
Very well said. So also we have a question from Vishal. He says, this difference between the artist and the entertainers, both have influence of their own. Do you have anything to say on this?
Yeah, see, an artist.
Entertainers and artists.
Yeah, so art, okay. So by artists, he means people who are not entertainers, right? So Vishal means that. But actually, there is a spectrum, right?
A
An
lot of
entertainer
overlap.
can, yeah, overlap. But I think that being an entertainer or an artist, you have to be at the top of your game in terms of creating meaning and communication, right? So you have to be in a situation wherein you can do that well. Whether you're an artist or an entertainer is equally tough, is all I can say. It's equally tough.
And Abhishek has very interesting question. So he's saying that how do I target an audience outside of your region? So he's from India and he wants to probably, have a target audience in maybe some other country. So what's the ideal technical right way of doing this?
Okay, so again, the question is asked as a strategy. Instead of that, if you ask where your community is, Abhishek, right? So for example, there can be somebody who is creating Marathi content, right? And that Marathi content can mean a lot to the Marathi diaspora, which is out there in the US or the UK or wherever. So now suddenly you're looking at it, a community which is dispersed, and therefore you can actually reach out and move beyond your region. Yeah. So there are many ways in which you can do that.
So we have a question, how to do video with good content quality. Maybe also I'll also add to it, maybe the size of the video. How much time do people really spend on a video? An ideal video, how would it look like?
See, if everyone had ideal videos, we'd have a formula for virality, right? So that's not a fair question. What is important for us to understand is that first of all, never try to make a viral video. Okay, that's one way of making sure that your video never gets viral. The second is, what you must understand is, try and figure out what are typically the templates that are used by your community and liked by your community. Okay, try to understand what is already liked by your community. What value systems do those templates actually work at? Thirdly, find a good editing tool. Like for example, InShot is a good editing tool. There are so many others. Find a good editing tool and know how to be a good editor. I think that works a huge amount to make a great video. Fourthly, look, if everybody wears a pair of jeans, then nobody is a rebel. Okay, everybody is a conformist. So don't also follow templates all the time. Try and create some originality that will hit your community harder than what they're used to.
Absolutely. I think that's important. So I have a question here. What should one be conscious while embarking on a career to be an influencer? Suppose I want my career is to be an influencer. So I know there's no formula for this, but
so if your career is to be an influencer, is not going to happen. You become an influencer first and then you get a career.
Okay, that's a very valid. I think that's what we need to understand.
Yeah. So you can't say, oh, I want to be a social media influencer as a career. You become a social media influencer first, and then you have a career out of it.
Yes, that was a very, very interesting answer. So, so does geographical and cultural difference also impact on some basic?
I mean, just think of all the TikTok influencers who suddenly became bereft of a home. Now you are in a situation wherein all these people went off to other platforms. No, they went to Insta or they went to YouTube and all of them, but they're nowhere as successful as they were on TikTok. Absolutely. Right? It leads to the point that I made about platform dependency.
So another question, how do you approach being an influencer in a niche area? So I think this also you answered, get the community. I mean, if that's the community.
Absolutely. Community. Absolutely.
So do you want to just give us one little, brief of, a stellar influencer, whether it's all the criterias one need to have, and responsibility also. I think responsibility is a very, very important aspect, because we've seen in past how it can really be, it can just go boomerang in terms of safety of people as well sometimes.
So 3 things. First is find your voice. Okay. Second is find your community. And third is know your value system. So once you know what makes you sound good, what makes you sound bad, and that's always something. That's finding your voice. Finding your community is finding people who will like you, who will welcome you, who will get inspired by you. Who are the people who want to be inspired by you? And why should they be? Right? That's the second thing. The third is when you are looking at your own value system. What will you work for? What you won't work for? Right? If you keep these three things, I think you'll be okay.
And here I'll just share something which I think the older generation with their WhatsApp, they're still thankfully stuck at only WhatsApp. Because, any message, for example, I can just say about elders in my family. They
Sure.
have a WhatsApp message. For them at that age, they think that it is truth, because to them they connected what they heard on the news when Doordarshan was there, or then other channels came in. So something which has come on your phone as a message, and something that it has to be true. So I think that is also a very, very important thing. I think we should educate people around, because this is also causing a snowball effect of hate and negativity that comes into the society. So
Yeah,
that's also pretty much part and parcel of the ethical aspect of
absolutely.
being an influencer,
Absolutely. I think you should
or a
never
social
try to be an
media
influencer. Just go for influence. I think that will solve
influencer.
a
Yes.
lot of.
So I think your time is up, and
Yep.
I think we had an amazing session. But if you just give me 1 minute, there are three questions
Sure.
which have just come up.
Yeah.
So hi Sneha, she's absolutely loved your session. The question is that the number game is important because engagement determines how relevant you are. So how do you keep away the attraction towards the number and stay relevant also?
I think the first, Sneha, thank you. First thing, what you have to do is prove the value to at least one person. So how do you prove value? By engagement. Then you find people who have the same connect with that value. That's when you have scale. So engagement always comes before scale. You prove the core value first, then the secondary value. Don't go for numbers without going for value, engagement value first, right? It's always sequential. You can't try to go for numbers and then say, now I will create value. Nobody is going to come to you. So it's always the other way around. So focus on numbers should always be secondary.
Thank you, thank you. So Akshita says her question is that if you have no professional experience but have been on stage,
Mhm.
you know how to attract the crowd, communicate with them. Do you think first step can be stand-up comedy rather than influencer for learning and becoming a professional? I think her question is not very, very clear, but I think what she's asking is that can she be an influencer while
Stand-up
in
comedy.
this career,
Yeah, I'd
probably?
like to answer it this way. There have been many teachers who were stuck to the classroom. All of us had to go to Zoom, right? And so we moved from being theater artists to stage artists to film artists. So everybody has to move with the times, including professors and anybody else. So if you have the ability to move from theater to film or to something else like stand-up comedy, wonderful. Practice your game and understand what the limitations of the new medium are. Don't expect it to be like the stage is the only thing. You're now using a new technology. So the rules of the game become different with the platform.
And that, I think, exactly you told us in your story, where even after a year of your podcasting, like, it was just
Exactly.
like, you still
Yeah, I'm still
evolved,
struggling.
learning from it still.
Yeah.
Abhishek says, do you think, can someone have influence without showing their real face online? Though just maybe artificially generated content like text to speech or something like that. So I think
That's
that's about
the
to be
ultimate
used.
dream for a lot of people. I think most important thing, Abhishek, is to understand that we never show our real face to almost anybody. We are always, even with our family and all of that, there is certain amount of persona building that we are always doing. In fact, you will be hard pressed to actually find the face that you actually have, right? Let's understand that first. The second thing is that, of course, so therefore you're not going to be completely yourself online, right? Because you'll be you're not going to be very clever if you're going to do that. What you have to do is look at the best parts of you, which are still genuine, which can attract people. You have to be inspirational to people, right? So find a way to be so.
And actually, which is pretty much off the influencing game. I mean, even in your house, you're not private to everybody. There's certain aspect you always keep it to yourself.
Exactly.
Yes. So we're taking this last question from Edmund. He says, how do you manage large audience? And by this, again, we're talking about number of followers.
So how do you manage? So managing a large audience is very interesting. I saw this with my kids. They are engaging. Okay, so they look at comments, they respond to comments, they stay engaged with the community. So they are continuously talking to people who are showing them their love. So they do dedicate their time. So they're not looking at one-way street of content creation and other people are liking. They're continuously engaging with, their community. I think that's the only way, really.
So what how I can conclude this is, one is, I think if you have to be an influencer, you have to look for or build a community. Again, there the various
100%.
steps that Professor spoke about. And once you have them, the only way you can probably successfully maintain those numbers would be engaging them.
Yeah.
So that's what we've learned.
It's hard work. It's hard work.
And it's a lot of, it's a full, and that's a career, or that becomes your career then, probably.
Correct. Right? Correct. Exactly.
So thank you so much, Professor Siddharth Deshmukh, for joining us. What's your time just now?
No, it's fine. It is before you, so it's still 2:30 in the afternoon. So I'm good.
Okay, awesome. So we just finishing for starting our weekend now. Saturday was kind of working, and I see a lot of people who join in. Thank you so much. Yeah. And we would be continuing with this connection series every alternate Saturday. And for the next one, we'll be sharing some information very soon on your screen. This is about, again, very important to, I think, not only students, but also to adults. I think we have pressurized ourselves without anyone, and nobody else is expecting to do that. So I think, we just hustling in so much of hustle that we just forget that life is not just a race. You have to take a break, you have to calm down, you have to reflect on what you really want to do, and take pressure only as much as you require, or probably it gets you're able to have a better productive experience. Just take that much pressure and not too much pressure, which actually breaks you. So we're going to be in conversation with Ms. Fatima Agarkar in our next session, which is on the 28th of August. Looking forward to see you all there. And again, thank you so much, Professor Deshmukh. It was amazing to engage with you. It was really nice.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being so kind to me.